The 31st of March has come and gone. What are you thinking and how are you feeling? Was the 31st of March demo successful? Well, it depends with who you ask. If you ask ZANU-PF apologists, they will tell you that the demo was a monumental failure, given that ED is still president and that people did not turn up in their thousands. But if you ask people who are supportive of Blessed Gaza, they will tell you that the demo was a success because businesses closed and people largely stayed away, which on its own is a form of demonstration. So this can be illustrated this way. Blessed Gaza said to the people, "Go and demonstrate and let's end this 2030 nonsense." And ED said to the people, No demonstration, go to work. Businesses and schools will be opened countrywide. So what did the people do? How did they respond to these two requests? Well, the people decided to stay home, and in effect, it became a shutdown. And so, who got what he wanted between ED and Gaza? Who did the people listen to? Well, I will let you answer that one, and spoiler alert, there is no right or wrong answer. And to those who are disappointed that the 31st of March has come and gone and yet ED is still in charge, well, my question is, what did you actually think would happen? Did you expect ED to give up power in one day? Do you even have the right to be disappointed if you didn't turn up to the said protest? And do you honestly think that Mnangagwa will let go that easily? Did I not say in my last video that you should never be tempted to assume that Mnangagwa is a pushover or that the whole military is opposed to him? So what must happen now? Well, fellow Sadzaitas, slay queens and bingers, socialites, papalites, wasinamalites, varkujga rice, never sinama rights. Welcome to the special report. So, at sunset yesterday, it was unclear how Gaza would proceed, given the setback brought by the low turnout. Was the protest going to continue throughout the night and even the next day, with the prospect of more people joining in, especially given the soft response by the ZRP compared to previous years? But I can't help but wonder, why did the ZRP take such a measured approach? Why did they exercise so much restraint? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's good. In fact, thank you ZRP. Tell me, how does it feel to be less brutal? But still, the point remains. The ZRP employed an unusual level of restraint, even after getting provoked by stone throwers and the annoyance of dealing with unrelenting protesters who kept gathering up minutes after being dispersed. Now, keep in mind that officially, which means as far as the authorities are concerned, what these protesters were doing is illegal because the demo was unsanctioned. Now imagine the opposition, dead as it is, calling for and going ahead with quote-unquote unsanctioned protests. Do you think that the police would have behaved in the same way they did yesterday? Well, we don't need to imagine anything. We all know what happened in the run-up to the SADC summit. James Ontimba and various opposition activists were arrested, not for demonstrating, no. They were simply arrested for just gathering. Their gathering was deemed to be unlawful because they gathered to discuss politics. So the authorities concluded that they were up to no good and decided to arrest them. They would go on to spend 5 months in prison. And I could go on and on giving you more examples of how the ZRP has in the past handled what they call unsanctioned gatherings and demos. But that's not what we are here for. Today, the subject is the Gaza Revolution, which is now being loosely referred to as the M31 movement. So, in the midst of the uncertainty brought by the setback of the low turnout, Blessed Gaza last night made an address in which he called off the protest and asked people to return to their normal daily routine as they wait for another signal, which he said will come on Wednesday. Now, clearly, this is a calculated move because, without a doubt, Gaza will be taking credit for the stay away that happened on Monday. So him calling off the protest is equivalent to calling off the stay away. So Gaza will be saying, ndakavhara Zimbabwe musi weMonday, ndikaivhura musi weTuesday. Ndini ndakachibata kuti dzvi, tongai tione. Now, of course, this doesn't have to be true. In fact, nothing in politics must be true. Truth is subjective in politics. It's all about perception. In any event, perception is an aspect of reality. That's why propaganda is an essential tool for all politicians, all of them without exception. So, it will be interesting to see how Gaza, or rather, what Gaza has up his sleeve on Wednesday. Because so far, he has made a few blunders, a chief amongst them, seemingly taking credit for torching cars at Chivayo and Taguire's premises. That was a bad move. I don't know who advised him to do that. I know it was a bad move because even in his last address, he reiterated his initial position of peaceful protests. My worry in my last video was that what started off as a call for peaceful demonstrations is now going to be tainted by acts and vibes of terrorism. Blessed Gaza said that part of the reason why he has called off protests is that he has good reason to believe that the president's son wants to take advantage of the protests to stage manage an act of terrorism, which the regime will then blame on Gaza. But of course, we all know that this is a silly season, so we shouldn't put a premium on anything said by these politicians. You should take everything they say with a pinch of salt because they add a bit of sugar and honey in some things they say. You should know that in politics, not everything is what it seems. All politicians lie when it's necessary to. But assuming that Gaza is telling the truth about the president's son, well, then it could mean that he's probably not prepared for the M31 movement to go the violence way. Otherwise, he wouldn't care at all about being branded a terrorist. So him caring probably means that he truly doesn't want bloodshed, at least not in his name. Unless, of course, if this thing was about testing the waters. What if March 31 was never really about removing Mnangagwa per se? At least not immediately. What if they were just testing the waters, studying the system and its response? What if it was just a plan by the anti-Mnangagwa faction of ZANU-PF to gauge the mood of the people and the feasibility of an actual uprising? Because who are we kidding? Uprisings are never publicly planned a month ahead. Many people have been saying that Gaza made the mistake of announcing that demo way too early, way before time. They are saying he gave the regime time to prepare. Well, ladies and gentlemen, have you considered that maybe that was part of the plan? Maybe that was done deliberately. I mean, you do know that Blessed Gaza is not working alone, right? After all, where do you think Gaza is right now? Where do you think he is? And how has he remained free despite being the most wanted man by the pro-2030 side of ZANU-PF, which is running government? Where do you think Blessed Gaza is? If he is in Zimbabwe, which I highly doubt, then it means he's under the protection of the military. Do you know the implications of that? And if he's outside Zimbabwe, which I highly suspect, then how do you think he got out of Zimbabwe? Who assisted him to jump the border? who assisted ED to jump the border in 2017. Ndo iya inonzi pa relationship status, it's complicated. Ndo iya yakanzi nemkadzi wa Will Smith, an entanglement. Let me explain the entanglement. You see, Blessed Gaza leads a faction of the war vets which is loyal to the vice president, and they want the vice president to take over. Now obviously, Vice President Chiwenga is not going to form his own party. They want him to take over not only as a state president but also as party president, meaning ZANU-PF president. So in order for Chiwenga to remain in office, he must appear as if he doesn't support what Gaza and his war vets are doing. The man is always quiet, preferring to talk about developmental issues and saying no to corruption. He refuses to publicly comment on the 2030 issue or the Blessed Gaza saga. And even after Mchangwa said all sorts of nonsense about him, he refused to publicly comment. So, pa language pa social media, tuningeta kuti Mchangwa akablutikwa na Generali wakablutika Mr. Manize. And to further explain the entanglement, you see, even if ED has enough intelligence to prove that his VP supports Gaza, he can't just fire him just like that. Well, at least not now. Because you see, contrary to popular belief, ED is not stupid and he is not dumb. He knows too well how badly this could go down. And so, he decides to take a measured approach, a calculated approach, a gradual isolation of his VP, pruning him of his influence, little by little, slowly but surely. Just the same way Mugabe dealt with General Mujuru. ED indeed learned from the best. But let me take this entanglement further. You see, what makes it even more complicated is that Gaza is not calling for the end of ZANU-PF. No, he is calling for the end of Mnangagwa. It's a resistance against ED, meaning as citizens, as you protest, you are in effect fighting a ZANU-PF battle. But I told you it's an entanglement because even though it's a ZANU-PF battle, it's ultimately also a national issue because ED is not only a ZANU-PF president, he's also the president of Zimbabwe. And so, many Zimbabweans, in and outside ZANU-PF, want Mnangagwa gone at all cost. Even those who are traditionally opposition supporters are prepared to either be used or assist a ZANU-PF faction to realize the goal of removing Mnangagwa. Now that should tell you how badly they want him gone. But I don't want you to demonstrate and protest thinking that things will be what they won't be. In other words, andisikuda kuti uzvinyebere and also andisikuda kuti unyeperwe. You know, there are some who actually thought that ED was going to get removed on Monday the 31st. As if it's that easy to remove an authoritarian. In 2017, even with a military-assisted demo, did Robert Mugabe resign on the same day of the demo? Didn't he say Asante Sana? Didn't Parliament initiate an impeachment process against Mugabe because he had refused to step down even after his military had staged a coup against him? I'm just giving you perspective, making you understand what you are up against. And keep in mind, in all this chaos, be it in ZANU-PF, in the opposition or civic society, our battles are never the same. They are not the same. Usatifananidze. Others genuinely want a real fresh start. They want an end to despotism and tyranny. But others are content with the status quo. There are some in ZANU-PF, though not many, who are actually now repentant. They have seen the light. They are truly reformists. They too want a fresh start. But others are fighting to defend their loot. After all, it is human nature to not bite the hand that feeds you, unless of course if you are stupid. So those that benefit from the status quo will shout the loudest in defense of the regime. You hear them talking about respecting the rule of law, but they never say anything when the government is abusing human rights. And then, of course, there are those in ZANU-PF who seemingly are anti-Mnangagwa, yet they are actually fighting for their turn to eat. Of course, they will brand it as a fight for your rights, but deep down, they are wolves in sheep's clothing. These ones are similar to the Mnangagwa group, which came to power in 2017. They pretended to be for you. They allowed you to march against Mugabe and told you that demonstrating is your democratic right. They provided the military to protect you as you demonstrated because it benefited their plan. When you then started demonstrating after they had taken power, they started killing you. Wolves in sheep's clothing. That's what I mean when I say it's entangled. It's complicated. Because in most cases, it is impossible to know who is genuine and who is not. And that is why I said in my last video, when are we as the citizens are going to start making demands of our own, which are independent from what these politicians want? Some of these politicians pretend to be fighting for you, yet they are not. When are we going to make it more about us and less about politicians? That is why I like the idea proposed by Gaza of a transitional authority, so we can take a break from these toxic politicians. But the trouble is, a transitional authority is a far-fetched idea, implausible. It is as unrealistic as the idea of a United States of Africa with the current crop of African leaders. Here is my message for Zimbabweans. Until when are we going to allow these politicians to play games with our heritage? Playing Wishu, Pada and Raka Raka with our future? How dare they? No. I should say, how dare us? Yes, us, not them. Us. Because whenever they want to be voted in, they always come to us. Whenever they don't agree on succession, they always come to us. Even after they stage coups against each other, they still come to us and ask for our help to legitimize their actions. And so, since they are always coming to us, it means we have something which they don't have. Something which their guns and tanks can't give them. What is that something? It's called a people power. Consent of the governed. The idea that a government's moral right to use a state power is only right or justified only when consented to by the citizens. Consent of the governed. It is the mother of legitimacy. Are we going to keep legitimizing nonsense? Well, whatever happens, I'll be here to marinate you with all the details without fear or favor, because on this platform, we say it as it is. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy the content, please like and share.